whoa, what are you doing? We can't use that. We'll get, like, sued or something. Just start the show. Hey everybody, welcome back to Let's Get Real, the show where three dudes talk about movies, entertainment, everything in between, and sometimes we agree and sometimes we don't, but it's always a good time. I'm Nick.
I'm Tom.
And I'm Will.
Well, let's get right to it. For movie news this week, I believe I'm the only one who has something to bring up, so we'll get to this really quickly, and I want to get you guys' genuine reaction, so I'm not even going to tell you the title of this article. But for the sake of giving credit where credit's due, I will say that this comes from AV Club, and the writer of the article is a guy named Andrew Paul. And so here's what it says. James Gunn and Charlie Kaufman are both respected filmmakers in their own rights, albeit one for their beloved subversive splatterfest genre fare, while the other for their beloved subversive art house darlings. Nary the two have met, but apparently that isn't their fault. In fact, there's a project both have intermittently attempted to get off the ground for decades, and quite frankly, we can't figure out why it's been so difficult for the two of them. Responding to a rather innocuous meme recently making the rounds involving unlikely film combinations, Gunn revealed one of Hollywood's lesser-known what-ifs, a dark, gritty, gruesome Gilligans Island reboot written by Charlie Kaufman. In the proposed reboot, instead of engaging in wholesome tropical shenanigans, everybody plots to kill and eat one another out of desperation. I want this movie.
Why? Why call it Gilligan's Island? Call it something else. Why are you going to mess with this?
Oh my
stuff?
God. Yes. I agree. I got to tell you, Will and I rarely are in full agreement, but this is one of those ones where it's just full agreement. Why the hell would you do that? Just make the movie and call it something other than Gilligan's Island, literally anything else, and they'd probably get it greenlit.
That's totally fair. And when I first saw this article, because this article literally came out today, like 8 hours ago. When I first saw the title of the article and read like the first paragraph, I had the same thought where I was like, well, that's weird, because why don't you just do something, make that movie, but call it something else? But the more I thought about it, I was like, you know what? That would be kind of funny if it really was Gilligan's Island. Like,
that's it. You just want to see the professor eat Mary Ann, just rip her.
I'm just saying, like when you think
This is
about
a family show, Tom.
like,
yeah,
that's a different movie.
Island.
That's a different genre. But no, when you think about it, like when you think about like the visual style of James Gunn with the writing of Charlie Kaufman, put that together and their version of Gilligan's Island where they eat each other like out of like survival, that's hilarious. Like I want to see this.
Don't get me wrong. I am totally up for a Charlie Kaufman written script directed by James Gunn. I will totally watch that. I just don't think it needs to be Gilligan's Island where they eat. You know what it reminds me of, Nick? Nick and I, we had a mutual friend who did a fan film recently, and they took this character and they basically flipped the character in such a way where they were in no way, shape, or form that character anymore. And I was like, so then why did you even need them? You know what I'm saying? Like, why are you even playing in that world if you're not going to actually do that character? I totally understand making a different, taking some artistic liberties to kind of make it a personalized thing. So, you know, if they had, I don't know. I was about to say if they had done Gilligan Island in space, but then I was like, that's Lost in Space.
Yeah, more or less. Yeah.
But my point would be, like, if you did some version of Gilligan's Island where there was like a slight twist on it or something just a little bit different, but it was still Gilligan's Island, like at the core of what Gilligan's Island is. Because here's the thing: when you deal with a franchise, you also have to deal with their fans, because at a certain point, you have to honor that. Otherwise, why are you playing in that particular sandbox at all? You know what I mean?
Two words. No. Oh.
No.
Well, no way. No. What? No. Come on. No. No.
Well, according to the article, I was just gonna say, according to the article, Sherwood Schwartz had the very same reaction. He said no way as well, because apparently Warner Brothers, the studio that they took this to, and your favorite studio, Tom,
Good old fashioned
Smart
Warner
man.
Brothers.
they actually
Smart
wanted
man.
to do it. It was Sherwood Schwartz,
Well,
and
here's-
eventually
you know
his
what's
estate,
funny?
They did.
and eventually it was Sherwood Schwartz's estate who kept saying no. But Warner Brothers apparently has been on board on and off, because they've apparently James Gunn and Charlie Kaufman, or at least Charlie Kaufman, has been trying to basically pitch this since the 90s. Apparently, he's been wanting to
Oh,
do this.
God.
You know
help
what's
us.
funny? What's funny about that is if Suicide Squad had made $1 billion, they would have, just like James Gunn, I mean, not James Gunn, but James Wan, they would have given James Gunn just, hey, carte blanche, go make him malignant. You're malignant, but it's Gilligan's Island and they eat each other or whatever, and I would have been, I'd have been fine with that in that situation because James Gunn would have earned it. But at this point in time, I have zero, I'll be honest. I'm not a big Gilligan's Island fan anyway, but I think I'm aware enough about it to know that the people who remember it, from the 1900s,
Oh,
The 1900s.
that's wrong. No, I can't say anything.
The
people-
1900s.
the people from the 1900s that remember it, they probably would not appreciate, that much of a twist.
Oh, of course
on
they
the
wouldn't.
story, because I
course
think
they
there's a
wouldn't.
certain point. So it's not really for them; it's to get new people involved. And at that point, again, just call it something else. Just call it
That's it.
something else. Just
That's
make
it.
a new movie.
I agree. I mean,
Just-
I'd like to see the movie regardless, but I do think there is an extra layer
You want to
of
see it for
humor.
the lulls.
I do think there's an extra layer of humor, though, if it really is Gilligan's Island.
That's kind of
Now-
like that. That reminds me of the Banana Splits movie that they just recently did, where it was like nothing like the 70s cartoon, or not cartoon,
Right.
kind of
Or
thing.
like that Superman movie that Zack Snyder did. I mean, it's exactly like
That's
that,
not
man.
it. That's not like that. It's not like
Exactly
that.
like that.
Zack Snyder gave you the
Call
best
it
Superman you've
something
ever
else.
seen.
That was
He
not
gave you the
Superman.
best Superman you've seen. You just got
That
mad because
was not
Superman
Superman.
actually fought somebody for once.
That was not
I'm
Superman.
sorry he couldn't
That's
throw an
not the
S.
character. That
I'm
is not
sorry
the character.
he doesn't throw S's either.
I'm so
No, he
happy
doesn't. No,
right
he
now.
doesn't. I don't agree
I'm
with Superman
so
4 either.
happy
You know what I'm
that
saying?
this conversation is happening right now. This is excellent.
All right.
Anyway.
So we're in agreement. It's a no for us, except for
Yeah.
Nick.
I was gonna say you
Yeah,
guys
except for
are. No,
Nick. He's- 'cause
I
he's-
am.
Because Nick's an anarchist over there. He's
I just think it'd be funny. I actually would like to see it.
I told you. He's like, I don't really think it'll be a good idea, but it'd be funny as hell, wouldn't it?
I would not be laughing. Not even a little bit. Nope.
He didn't appreciate it
My childhood is already ruined enough when
because they had a brunette Barry Allen. I'll never forget it.
Not just that, man. Not just that. Although that's a big one. But look at the stuff that what's his name? Will. What's his face? The comedian. Will. Oh my God.
Oh, Will Ferrell.
Which one? There's so many.
Will Ferrell. Will Ferrell. Look,
Oh yeah.
look what he's done with all the stuff from my childhood. Land of the Lost and all the kind of no.
Bewitched.
Heck no.
Yeah, wasn't he in Bewitched?
Yeah, he
come
was
on.
in Bewitched. Yeah.
Come on.
I feel like WandaVision did a better service to Bewitched than
100%.
than the movie did.
Well, yeah.
And guess what? They didn't call it Bewitched. They called it WandaVision.
Right, because guess what? It was so different, but even still, it was so much like it. But they were like, it's not the same thing. That's kind of my thing. Always, this is like I feel that if you're going to play in that sandbox, man, honor the core of that franchise. Honor the core.
Well, no, I stick to the character.
Yeah.
The core is not enough. Stick to the damn character. Otherwise, call
If
it
they're
something,
blonde, they're
create
blonde.
something new.
If
I mean, come on. All right, I think we've beaten this to death. All
Okay,
right.
okay. I'm with you though. I'm with you, Will. I think you're a little bit more extreme than me, but I'm with you.
No, I own it, man. I'm extreme. I have no apologies for that. Nope.
See,
All right, anyway,
I told you that little
um,
piece of movie news would be fun.
Yeah.
It was fun. It
And
was
he,
pretty.
and he purposely, to the audience, he purposely kept it a secret from us so that he can get our genuine reaction.
Yeah.
Boy, did he get it.
Oh yeah.
Mission
Boy, did he
accomplished.
get it.
Mission accomplished.
All right. So what are we talking? What have we been watching? Right. What's next?
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
What have we
Yeah,
been
what have we
watching?
been watching? I know myself. Okay. I have watched a couple of things this week, but the one that's sticking in my head the most is the other night, the wife and I sat down and we watched Promising Young Woman. Have you guys seen it?
I have
I
not.
don't think that exists. I've never heard of this movie ever. I think you're
Oh,
making
what
it
are you
up.
talking
Really?
about? It got
You
like,
haven't?
I think it was pretty, I think it came out last year. Is that about right, Nick?
I
I
think it
feel like
did.
it
Yeah.
was last year. But there was a lot of movies that came out last year that just under the radar because
Oh, I
given the situation and
definitely heard
everything
about
there.
it. I just never got around to seeing it, but I heard it
Oh,
was
I
good.
did too. I had heard only good things, so I was it was interesting because I had finally gotten my HBO Max app working again, and we're scrolling through, and we're trying to find the movie we're going to watch, and we end up passing Promising Young Woman, and we want to watch the trailer. We watched the trailer. It's got a great Britney Spears cover in the trailer. You know how they'll take a popular song and then make it all trailerfied or whatever.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But anyway, point is, the movie itself, when I sat down to watch it, okay, I'll be honest, it's one of those things where I didn't have like the highest expectations for it. It was one of those ones where I watched the trailer and in my mind I had already decided what this movie was going to probably end up being, right? And there parts of it I was spot on, okay? But there is no way you can predict the third act of this movie, right? It's kind of like almost don't get me wrong. It's not like Malignant's third act. Like, in Malignant's like there's no way you know what the third act of this movie is. And then if you figured that out, like you're on drugs, right? But if with Promising Young Woman, it just takes a certain turn that I just was completely unexpected. You know what I mean? But the movie itself I thought was pretty well written. I thought it was well paced. There's a lot of movies that aren't, just aren't paced very well anymore. They're either too long, too short, all of that there.
Yeah.
But with Promising Young Woman, one thing I will say is they don't get any points in the diversity category. I mean, everybody in this movie was white actor, white actress. They actually had Laverne Cox in there to play both, their black and transsexual characters. So they got everything in her.
Right.
Like she was the representation for everybody.
Right.
Actually, no, I take that back. They did have Michael. I believe it's Michael Richardson. I believe is the comedian's name, black comedian.
Yeah.
And he's pretty funny. I like him. But both of those roles were like so small compared to like everything else and a bunch of white people. But end of the day, I thought the movie was actually, like I said, pretty well written. I thought it was interesting. It kept my attention the entire time. It was one of those ones where the wife and I probably started it too late because we fell asleep on it and everything. There, that's our trend is to fall asleep on a movie and finish it the next morning. And but man, when I finished it, I was so excited. I was like, "Hey, you got to go back and watch this. Like, go back and watch this and everything." And I definitely recommend it to people. The other thing that I watched is the same thing everybody's been watching.
Squid Game.
Squid Game.
Yeah.
Yes, I've been wanting to talk to you guys about Squid Game for like 2 weeks.
So talk to us about Squid Game.
Man, Squid Game. Okay, so you guys remember on the last episode? I know we didn't record last week. We missed you guys, but I know we didn't record last week. But in the last episode, I was talking about how I don't do a lot of different foreign subtitle films just because the way I visualize things when I read it becomes an issue for me watching, right? With Squid Game, I ended up watching Squid Game.
So did you watch it dubbed?
I actually did watch it dubbed. I'm not one of the subtitle people. I watched it dubbed, and usually I can't watch things dubbed because they're usually so horrible. And don't get me wrong, it's not like Squid Game is going to win like awards and world's best dubbing or whatever like that. It's not that great.
I know what you mean. Tony.
Yeah.
It's not that bad. That's the thing that I would say though. It wasn't that bad, but there was just what it was sometimes the dub over actors, the voice actors don't match what you're seeing on screen the right way. But yeah, anyway, point is, whether you watch it subtitle, whether you watch the dubbed version, definitely get in Squid Game if you haven't seen it, just for the fact of right now it's a cultural phenomenon like around the world.
Oh
Definitely
yeah,
watch it,
yeah,
so you can get into that thing. I don't, there are some people who have been trying to compare it to Saw. I think that's a very, very weak comparison. If you actually watch the show and everything there, it's not like Saw. Saw is like almost torture porn at the later day. Like even the first Saw, maybe the second Saw, but after that, like all of them were just pretty much just torture porn as far as
yeah,
I was concerned. Them and Hostel, all the Hostel
yeah,
movies,
yeah, yeah.
and so but with this, there's a real human story that's there.
Yeah.
That a lot of it I feel gets lost, but I mean, you got to remember all these people that they ended up that joined the Squid Game. These are people that are down on, and I don't just mean down on your luck. I mean they don't have any more options. You see what I'm saying? They've gotten to the point where this is a good option for them. You see what
Right.
I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so it's just you think of your lowest of lows that you've reached, and then you watch Squid Games, and you're like, it ain't been that bad, it ain't been that bad yet. So yeah, but no, I recommend Squid Games because it was just there's a very, very good human element to it. I know that some of that got lost in the American translation. Some of the best things that a lot of Korean audiences really loved about it. There were some things that got missed. But I think the core of the overall story still is very strong. Very strong.
Yeah.
And I recommend it. I just really recommend it. If anything, so you can get all the memes that are going on right now.
Sure. No,
Did you watch it,
I
Nick?
definitely am planning on watching it. No, I have not watched it yet. I am going to though for sure. And as Tom was just saying, like the Koreans go hard, man. Like I like the Koreans. I like what they do in film and television. My favorite foreign film ever in the history of foreign films is Old Boy, the original Old Boy.
Oh, I thought
So
you were gonna say
like,
Train to Busan.
no, I
I
haven't
love
seen.
Train to Busan.
I
That's
haven't.
I love
mine.
Train to Busan.
That's
I
mine.
haven't.
I love
I
Train to
haven't seen
Busan.
it, but I am planning on watching that at some point too. But no, I love the original Old Boy.
Oh,
So I rep Korean cinema. They know what they're doing. Also, dude,
the
Parasite for
lead.
God's sake.
Yes, Parasite. But the lead for Train to Busan, Will,
Was in this? Yes, I know.
is
He's the one that
in
slapped him.
Squid Game. Yeah,
I watched it. I saw it. So
you did see it.
yeah, I
Oh,
watched
good.
it.
So you're in the you're good
Yeah,
peoples, and then there's Nick.
I watched it, and I'll tell you, it was super. It was super entertaining, but
Oh God, this guy. Okay, go ahead. What?
I felt it was anticlimactic at the end.
Oh, okay. I'll tell you because I didn't want to get too much
no
into
spoilers,
it.
but
No
Yeah,
spoilers.
I'm gonna watch this. So don't
I'm
spoil it.
I'm not gonna spoil it. I'm with you. Like I didn't want to say that, but I'm with you as far as the end. I would love for once Nick sees it, I would love
we
for
can
us to
talk about
just
it.
cycle back.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure it'll still be a thing at that point.
I'm sure.
I would love for us to cycle back just to really kind of dissect Squid Game a little bit,
Mhm.
to talk about particularly that ending and what worked for me and what didn't.
Right.
Because I think you and I are probably going to hit some of the same beats on this.
I'm sure.
Because I'm gonna tell you, literally until we got to the end, I was just like, I'm loving it, I'm loving it, I'm loving it, I'm loving it. And then we got to the end, I was like, and here are my criticisms.
Yeah. And I will say that to my taste, they spend a little bit too long trying to establish how bad off these people were. Like I got it.
Yeah, it
got it.
moves slowly.
Let's
It does move
on.
slow.
But
In
once
that
we get
first
into the
episode.
games, once we get into the games, I was all in. I was
Yes.
all in. But yeah, after a while, it's like I get it. They're poor. Freaking go. But
Right. How many
But how poor
episodes?
are they, Will?
How many?
I think it was 8.
Okay.
I think it was
yeah.
8 or 9 episodes.
nine episodes.
I will make
Yeah,
a
it's less than
concerted
10.
effort.
That's one of those.
I'll make a concerted effort to get through
Yeah.
as much of it as possible by next week.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
actually a pretty easy binge. I mean, they're some of them are hours, some of them the next to last one is like a half hour, so it varies
Okay.
in length. But
Okay.
I would say the first 2 are probably the slowest ones to get through because you've got a lot of characters to meet.
yeah,
But don't worry, don't get attached to them.
No, I mean,
Mm,
that and that
yeah.
doesn't bother me. Like slow pace doesn't bother me. Like there are people who tried to say the first couple seasons of Breaking Bad were kind of boring, and I totally disagree with that. So I'm not worried about the slow pace at all.
I wouldn't say they're boring. I'd say the first season of Breaking Bad was slower than the others.
I
You
just
know,
when they got the new cinematographer, that's when it all changed to me.
I agree too. Hey, I'm gonna tell you, there's nothing like those New Mexico sky shots with all the clouds. Yeah.
And the silence, the things to do
Yes.
with silence were
Yes.
okay. We're getting off
We're
topic.
getting off topic.
Okay.
Well, we'll
Nick,
bring
what
it
have you
back
been
around.
watching?
So Tom alluded to the fact that last week we didn't record, and that was because I was a bit indisposed. I had myself a lovely little case of E. coli, so I don't recommend it.
Is that what it
Uh,
was?
yes,
Yeah.
that's what it was. It was the test results finally came back the other day, and it was E.
What have you
coli.
been
But you know what?
eating?
I blame it
He said it was
on.
something you fed him in Baltimore.
Yeah, that's what it was. No, I
He
blame
did
it
not come out
on
to
a.
dinner last night with us.
No, I blame it on some sushi probably that I had when I was on vacation a couple weeks ago. I had uncharacteristically I had some raw sushi, which I don't normally do, so that's the only thing I can think of. But anyway, while I was indisposed and while I was basically just laying in bed in pain, I did what I often do when I'm either feeling bad for whatever reason. I turn to my comfort food, and one of my shows that I really like to watch that I call my pacifier show is Frasier. I really love Frasier, and it's one of my favorite.
Something else from the 1900s.
Yeah, something else from the 1900s. The show did end in the 2000s. It did go into the 2000s, but yeah, no,
But
it's
did
one of my
make it.
favorite sitcoms of all time. I could do many podcasts singing the praises of that show, and it's a show that I started watching. I came around to it late. I was probably like 24, 25, something like that when I finally started watching it. And funnily enough, Will, it's because, and this won't really mean anything to anybody outside of you, but you remember Lisa Dotson, who used to work in Cox Media when I first started working at Cox. Every time I would come into the office, she would have it on. It would be on like Lifetime or something. So, like, for a long time, just tossed salads and scrambled eggs was in my head all the time. And I finally decided to watch it, I think that year, back in like 2014 or something like that. And I got to tell you, like for years, when I was a kid, I remember my parents watching it, and like the theme song to the show was kind of seared into my head and stuff. And I remember growing up thinking that like, oh, that's like that smart show. That's like that show that like smart people watch. And, I had these preconceived notions of it being like really snooty and pretentious and stuff like that. And while that is part of the show, what I love about the show is for anybody who thinks that about Frasier, if you actually watch it, the show really lampoons a lot of snooty, pretentious kind of stuff. And Frasier and his brother are often the butt of jokes. And, their father, who is like the more normal blue collar guy, people like that often come out, more on top in those situations. So it subverted my preconceived notions, and I fell in love with it. And it's been one of my favorite shows ever
Well,
since. I've watched it several times.
that whole thing started in Cheers.
Yeah.
When he was going to be married to what's her name, but that lampooning of that type of psychologist or that type of person started way back in Cheers.
Mm-hmm.
I loved Cheers. I never got into Frasier. I don't know. It never spoke to me. But Cheers was a big thing for me. Oh,
I remember my mom watching Cheers a lot when I was younger. It was like Cheers and Night Court.
yeah. Yeah. I watched them in reruns.
Yeah.
And funnily
Yeah,
enough,
sure.
I never funnily I haven't Cheers is on my list because I haven't watched Cheers. I've seen an episode here and there, and I've liked what I've seen.
Yeah.
I just haven't gotten around to actually going through the whole thing. But so I had last week I was watching a lot of that, lots of Frasier. In terms of movies, I did watch last night, as a matter of fact. They just came out with these new 4K Blu-rays of all of the Halloween movies. And I bought the first three. And last night I watched Halloween 3 for probably the, I don't know, fourth or fifth time, which I think, personally, a movie that was not appreciated in its time because it's the one movie in the Halloween franchise that has nothing to do with Michael Myers. But as a movie, as a standalone movie, I really like Halloween 3. It's kind of like a really cool episode of The Twilight Zone.
What
Like,
is the point of a Halloween movie without Michael Myers?
so here's the deal. I'll give you a very short rundown of why that happened. So after
Okay.
Halloween 2, for those who've never seen Halloween 2, Michael Myers dies, quote unquote, in a fire. At the time, John Carpenter really wanted nothing to do with Halloween 2, but he did agree to like write the score and some other stuff. So they wanted to kill off Michael Myers after the second one. And what they wanted to do, which I think is kind of a cool idea, is they wanted to keep the name Halloween, but turn the franchise into an anthology series where every new movie would be about something totally different, but it would all be centered around Halloween, like the holiday of Halloween. So Halloween 3 is basically the story of this guy who creates these masks that are like all the rage. Like all the kids love these masks. There's like 3 masks, one's a pumpkin, one's a witch, and one's a skeleton. And what ends up happening is through a series of very strange events, there is a guy, he's a doctor, and this other girl are like the 2 main characters. They end up going to this town where these masks get made, and like everybody in the town is super weird, and like they're like being watched the whole time. And eventually what it you kind of find out in the end is like all of it has to do with like Samhain and like the Stonehenge, and it has to do with like witchcraft, and like the guy's using these masks basically to like kill a bunch of kids with a TV broadcast. It's really weird and out there, but like when you watch it, it's actually kind of cool. It's like a cool little episode of the Twilight Zone, but it's like a 90-minute episode of the Twilight Zone. So I think it's a cool movie, very underappreciated in its time, but I think in the years since, a lot of people have kind of come around to seeing it on its own for what it is, and I think it has kind of a cult following now.
Not only that, but people are more open to anthologies than I feel
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Like, I feel like that idea would have more legs if it had started now versus, back then.
Yeah, no, it was definitely an idea that was ahead of its time. But I recommend it. If no one's ever seen Halloween 3, give it a chance. Like if you can divorce yourself from the idea that Michael Myers has nothing to do with this movie, you might enjoy it.
Well, and I feel like they've done anthologies before then. I mean, they did. It started with like Tales from the Crypt. Right, it was a horror anthology where every show was different, and they made the movie, and the movie had like 4 or 5 different stories in it, and I loved it when it came out. And Stephen King was in one of them. So anyway,
yeah, but I just think that idea of an actual anthology franchise where what sells is the fact that it's a Halloween movie, right? And then each time that would have been cool. That makes a lot more sense than Michael Myers like not dying,
right?
And
and then ended up in space.
Right? No, he didn't go to space. That was Jason, sir.
Oh, Jason. Okay.
Jason with
movies
space.
are all the same.
Not yet. He hasn't ended up in space yet.
But he's coming.
Jason versus Michael in space. Eventually, it'll be
Look.
Predator.
This is why I tell
Freddy
people
and Jason and Michael Myers together.
I tell people Jason is the OG hardcore #1 slasher movie villain. It's Jason. All right. To me, he outdoes Michael Myers just because Jason been killing across times, across realms, up in space. He killed a hologram once. He went to hell, came back.
Right.
He did.
And he crossed over and beat up Freddy. Like he's like Mike Myers hasn't done that. He's still trying to kill Jamie Lee Curtis.
Right.
He's still trying to do that.
So the Friday the 13th series has worse writers, is what we're saying.
Basically, yeah.
yes. Indirectly, that is exactly what I'm saying.
No, I totally agree. I will say though, of all of the slasher icons, Michael Myers is my personal favorite. The original Halloween,
I think he's scary.
Yeah, well, the original Halloween, I think might be, if you really pressed me, I think the original Halloween might be my favorite horror movie ever. It's just there's something Hitchcockian about it. Like I think Alfred Hitchcock would have really respected what John Carpenter did with Halloween. I don't want to get too. I could go into the weeds forever talking about Halloween, but
it's interesting because the first film I think of every like major horror film franchise is usually actually pretty good. Yeah, and it's pretty groundbreaking in whatever it did that first time. All right, so like. That's why I tell people don't make jokes. There could be a Malignant 4. Okay, there could be a Malignant 4 down the road. It won't be as good as the first one. And I use good very liberally there.
Yeah.
But I'm saying, so yeah, I've heard that from a lot of people that the first Halloween was very groundbreaking in what it did. Um, and then they just at some point tried to continue to replicate that. That's why I got
Pretty
to
much.
tell you, my favorite horror film like franchise is probably Scream. Because I've seen all of them except for Scream 3. I did not see Scream 3. Okay. But each one of them, because of the way Scream is made within itself,
Hmm.
since it parodies and does a lot of commentary on the horror genre as it is. I think each time Scream 1, Scream 2, and then in Scream 2, they've made a movie out of the things that happened in the first Scream movie and
Yeah.
everything there. It's like there was something fresh each time. And then even when you got into the fourth one, the one with Emma Roberts and everything there, they were finding ways to twist it that made that story work. In fact, the interesting thing to me about the Scream franchise is that in Halloween and in Friday the 13th, the main antagonist never dies. They just keep going for forever. Whereas in Scream, it's the core cast members that never die. Like,
Right.
it's Nev Campbell and Courtney Cox and David Arquette. You get Dewey and Sydney and all them every time. They're still there,
Yeah. Yeah.
But no, I like that because it's a little different there.
Yeah, and that's a credit to Wes Craven.
Yep.
He's got a good mind for it. But anyway, Will, what have you been watching?
I'm going to do this really quickly. 2 movies. The first one was In the Heights.
Oh,
Okay.
that was a musical. That was the musical that just came out about a month or two ago.
Lin-Manuel Miranda. Yep.
Yep.
Which is actually he wrote that before he wrote Hamilton.
Really?
Yeah, he wrote
How
that.
was it?
It was. I'll tell you in a second. The second one that I want to talk about is. I'm not sure if you guys have heard of this, but it's called The Map of Tiny Perfect Things. Okay.
No.
Yeah, no, I've not.
No,
Right,
absolutely
Let me start with
not.
the second one first. Then.
Okay.
Map of Tiny Perfect Things. It's on. I found it on Amazon, and I actually
Okay.
learned about it because of a podcast I was listening to, and they were talking about this great, cute little movie that's heartwarming. And so, okay, I was in the mood for something heartwarming. We just finished Squid Game. We're like, oh, I gotta watch it.
Make me smile.
Right. And so it's about it's a typical Groundhog Day type of movie, right? There's a kid who is reliving the same day over and over and over again.
Okay.
But the interesting thing is he runs into a girl who's doing the same thing. And then while they're stuck in this time loop, they decide to make a map of all the tiny perfect things that they encounter. Like there's a janitor who, as he's cleaning, he sits down and starts playing piano, and he's a master. He just plays masterfully. And there's a girl with one of those big balloons of soap bubbles, and another girl comes and sits inside of it. All these little perfect moments in life that everyone takes for granted, that they decide to focus on and make a map of where they're all happening, because it would happen. They would all happen on the same day at the same time every time, so they can map every one of them. And then it's a matter of, should we try to stop this or should we not? And there's reasons why not, and reasons why they should. And I'm not going to spoil it for you because it's really one of those movies that is one of those hidden gems. I would love to hear what you guys think about it, because right from the get, I was enchanted. That's probably the best way to put it. I was like, this is a really nice movie. And there's some cliches in it, but for the most part, right from the get, they don't explain why the kid is stuck in a loop. He just already is when you join it. And it's refreshing to me, right? And he's already anticipating stuff as he goes. But it's a feel good movie, and I liked it a lot. Right, so
sounds like a candidate for a movie challenge.
That does sound like a good candidate.
Perhaps
then better than The Greatest Showman.
I disagree, but anyway, we'll get to that when we get to that. But then In the Heights. So I have a confession to make. The first time I watched Hamilton, I hated it.
Understood. It's a musical.
Like, but it's a musical unlike any other musical. It's very like a it's almost spoken word than sung in a lot of
Oh, you mean
pieces.
so they're
No, it's
rapping?
no, it wasn't rapping. It's not
Mm,
rapping. It was they spoke so fast, and if it was it was hard to understand. Right?
like rap?
Oh my god! It
Mm. Is it the hip hop music?
it is not okay.
It
Maybe
wasn't. It wasn't West
Work
Side
with me
Story.
here, Will. Work
It
with me
wasn't. It
here,
wasn't.
Will.
It wasn't Singing in the Rain. It wasn't evocative of the good
it,
old
it,
days
it
of
wasn't
music.
lyrical, and he did it on purpose because the colonials were scrappy and they're different, and then every time the British would sing,
They rapped
it was very lyrical and very old Broadway style. But every time the colonials sang, it was like this spoken word stuff, right?
because America gave them rap music.
Oh, for God's sakes, Tom!
I'm sorry. I'm
So
sorry.
the first time I saw it, I hated it for that reason. I'm a Broadway guy. I love musicals. I was in theater for a long time, so
Right.
that's why I was expecting. Everyone raved about Hamilton, so I was looking forward to that. I hated it. I absolutely hated it. But then my daughter heard from her friends it was great. You have to watch it, whatever. So I was forced to sit through it again,
Mm-hmm.
and I was in awe.
That you know what? I got to tell you, I'm not surprised because that's like your MO.
Very good point. Very good point.
Yeah.
Very good point. The
Yeah.
expectations now suddenly were lowered, and now I can actually sit back and relax and enjoy. And it is a absolute masterpiece. But now, fast forward to In the Heights, and In the Heights is Lin-Manuel Miranda's first show. Which he wrote that before he wrote Hamilton. So I was thinking, okay, is this going to be the same type of tap spoken word type of musical that he did for Hamilton? And I'm going into it understanding that's probably how it's going to be, so I'm expecting it. And sure enough, the first song is very similar to that.
Mm-hmm.
But then it breaks into this. Now you guys know I'm of Hispanic descent, right? And this has such a Caribbean Latin feel to it throughout the entire thing that I am absolutely in love with this movie right from the get-go. To me, you may not like it when you watch it as much as I did. To me, it brought me home because I remember when I was living in Puerto Rico and we had these block parties and people would be dancing out in the streets and singing, and everyone's full of life and doing things and just having fun and enjoying life to the fullest. That's what this movie was for most of it. There's obviously the drama and the conflicts and things like that, but at the end, I mean, everything is just so much fun. It spoke to my soul so deeply that it's risen to one of my favorite movies of all time. It is amazing to me.
Wow. It was that. That's and you didn't even have to watch it twice.
First time. I'm gonna watch it with my daughter on Saturday because she wants to see it. But I loved it. I really loved it.
Well, that's awesome,
That's
man.
pretty cool.
I'm
That's
glad
pretty cool.
that I'm glad you had that experience because at least I can't speak for everybody, but I know for me, most movies, it's like a bell curve, right? Like most movies for me kind of fall within the bell curve of being anywhere from just like okay to like not great but not terribly offensive, and then on one end you have like just abject trash, and then on the other end you've got like the stuff that really does speak to you, the stuff that's like amazing and awesome. And so I know for me that it's in the minority of movies that I think are truly amazing. So it's cool whenever you have a moment that you have a new one that comes along.
And honestly, me too, Nick. The movies that I absolutely adore are very few and far between, as we all know by now and during this podcast. But I will tell you, this movie, it brought me to tears. Like I literally, my eyes were watering when I was watching it because I was moved so much because of it. Now, I will admit, it's probably the cultural thing because it spoke to my soul, and you guys will probably watch it and go, "What the hell was he talking about?" But for me, it is, and it's probably for. And if there are any Latinos out there listening to this show or watching this show, I would strongly urge you, especially if you're of Caribbean descent, Puerto Rican, Cuban, Dominican. It's a long movie, but it is so worth it. I can't speak enough good things.
Where can I see it? That's on HBO Max, right?
Yes, it's on Max. Yep.
Okay.
They really should sponsor this show at this point. As much HBO Max as we've been doing since we started.
Yeah.
It's true. I will say this. I probably won't watch it only because it's a musical. Like that, like it's like it's like if there was a if there's a bell curve, there's the movies that I love. There's the movies that are just okay to, probably not that great. And there's over here the trash, and that's just the musicals. That's like all the musicals, like all of them
So,
go over
so
there.
Tom, my friend,
Yes, brother.
you understand that you're setting yourself up
I know.
for
I
a
know
new
what I just
challenge.
did. I'm aware.
So
I'm aware.
I have a feeling that In the Heights might just be in your future, my friend.
I mean,
But
because
here's the
it
thing.
touched you so, I would feel much better with that than The Greatest Showman.
But here's the thing. If we start doing these challenges again, Tom,
Mm-hmm.
you have to watch the movie.
Look,
Yes.
I watched
You
Bernie.
watch the
I
movie.
definitely watched
You did.
Bernie.
You did.
All right.
Mhm. Mhm.
I did not watch Cry Macho for multiple reasons,
Mhm.
and I think that's like a perfect segue to get us into this week's movie
Absolutely.
that we all took the time to attempt to watch.
I was gonna say, we
Use my
all
words
watched.
carefully. Use my words carefully. We
We
all
all
took the
watched
time to attempt to
portions
watch.
of it.
Between the
Some-
three of us, this movie was seen.
Some more than others.
Okay,
Yes.
this
yeah.
movie was seen. All right, look. All right. So we did the Mini Saints of Newark. That's the
Correct.
Mini Saints of Newark,
Correct.
which was the for those of you who don't know, that was the Sopranos movie. That's come out, as far as I'm concerned, a couple of years too late.
Couple?
But a lot of people were hyped for this, man. And I got to tell you, when those trailers first came out,
Mhm.
I was sitting there, and every single trailer, I got more and more excited because I loved The Sopranos.
Yeah.
Okay, I loved it. I'm one of the few people who actually still likes mobster movies. I will still watch,
I do too.
mafia movies and
I do
everything
too.
there. Even The Irishman, which everybody was like, "Oh, it's too long," and such. I still enjoyed The Irishman, not as much as Goodfellas and everything
No,
like that, but
it's not
it was
Goodfellas.
fine.
Yeah.
It was fine. It was within the bell curve.
Yeah.
But Mini Saints of Newark was a harder watch for me. And I want to point out what I think. First off, full disclosure, I did not finish the whole movie. I've got about a half hour left.
What?
I was trying to watch. Look.
We're
Before we
shocked,
get there,
Tom. Shocked.
before we get, you know what? From your tone, I don't think you are. From your tone, I don't think you are. But I did give an honest attempt to watch this movie. Like, I wish you guys had seen how many times I tried to watch this movie on my phone today, as Nolan intended, apparently. But yeah, no, but my thing is this. It was partially really difficult, okay, because a lot of these characters, the characters that are actually from The Sopranos that are in this movie, they're so much younger versions of themselves that some of them you can't even pick apart, like who's who and what's this. Like, I mean, thank God Uncle Junior always wore those stupid glasses, so I knew exactly who he was.
Well, and he's still bald.
And he's still bald, right? He's still bald, and he's got there. Silvio is pretty easy to point out. Paulie, but the thing is this: the movie doesn't really spend enough time with the few characters that you can even pick out that you do know.
Right.
It really focuses a lot on Tony's Uncle Dickie, who was his inspiration to kind of become this, this mob boss, which is funny when you really think about it. Because isn't that the way it goes? His dad was his own mob boss, right? Went to jail and everything, running the Sopranos family that Tony eventually inherits and everything there. That's not his idol, though. It was the uncle.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, poor dad.
So what was your overall impression before we get to the spoiler section? What was your overall impression of the hour that you watched?
It was an hour and 15 minutes.
Excuse me, I apologize.
Yeah. My overall impression was that it was very well shot. So there was a lot of good cinematography that I liked that was in there. I liked I was following kind of what Leslie Odom's character was going through, Leslie Odom Jr., but I also didn't feel that there was enough really meat there to
Mm-hmm.
kind of move that plot line along. Um, I think the other plot line with Dickie, of course, there was a lot more meat there where they're telling
Right.
his story. But
Right.
even what I was getting from all of that seemed so rushed. One of the things that it seemed kind of rushed, but overall, if you've been waiting around for a Sopranos movie and everything there, I think that they did it just, especially with this being a prequel and not like a continuation
Mm-hmm.
from where we left off, which I don't think we ever should do that. Don't touch it. It cuts to black and we're done. That's fine.
Yeah.
I'm good with that.
Yeah.
But I think this movie would have been fine if it came out maybe 10 years ago.
Well, I mean,
You see,
yeah.
And I
Although,
heard
to be fair, though, if they were going to do a movie that came out 10 years ago, that would have meant that James Gandolfini would still be alive, right? Because he was alive 10 years ago.
Was he alive 10 years ago? I don't think he was. Was he? What would it have
I
been
don't.
2011? I don't think he
Well,
was in 2011.
I'm not sure, but
I was going to say, if
Either
he
way.
was, though, that would have kind of made me want
Either
to see.
way,
I would have liked to have seen a prequel with him in it, just because I love him so much, and he was so
very good
he
actor.
was he was so born to play that character.
he died in 2013, guys.
Okay, so he
Okay,
would have
there we
been
go.
alive. He would
Yeah.
have been alive for it. Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's like I think if they did it 10 years ago, it would have been better, in my opinion. Only because I think
Probably.
you would have kept up. You would have been able to, I think that connective tissue would have been better because a lot of the characters that are in this movie, by the time you got to the end of Sopranos, save for a handful of them, they were all dead.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
just from the way the Sopranos go, not to ruin this or spoil the Sopranos for anybody, but a lot of people die in the Sopranos.
Oh yeah. No, I pretty much agree. As Will takes a sip of alcohol to quench
Yes.
his coughing.
So yeah, follows
um,
and chases down with Everclear.
no, I pretty much agree. That's how a man stops coughing. Drink whiskey.
Right.
No, I pretty much agree with everything that you said. I mean, so for context, I am currently watching The Sopranos. I haven't finished it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm somewhere in season 3. And for any Sopranos aficionados out there, I just watched the Pine Barrens episode not that long ago. So that's where I am in the series. There were things in this movie. I'll say overall, I think it was, I'd probably give it like a 6.5 out of 10.
Yeah.
It was, I agree with a lot of things that you said. There are things in this movie that I felt, it felt like they were trying to do too many things to me, because you almost have 3 different things going on, which is like, first of all, for anybody who thinks this movie is more so going to be focused on young Tony Soprano, I'll go ahead and throw this spoiler out. Not so much. It's really much more about Dickie Moltisanti.
Mm-hmm.
He's much more the main protagonist. But so you've got that going on. You've got the stuff with Dickie going on. You do have some stuff with Tony in there. But then you've also got, which is interesting, you've sort of got this other subplot going on of the fact that it's set in the late 60s, early 70s, and there are like these race riots that are going on in Newark at the time. So you also have this other subplot where you have this, I don't know what you call it other than like maybe a contingent of black guys in Newark who are, I guess they were sort of like underlings or doing sort of odd jobs for the mob. And then one of the guys decides like, hey, fuck this. Like we should do our own thing. And that was interesting. And I kind of almost feel like if they had made a movie that was just about that, about like the tensions between the mob and tensions between like this new black mob that is trying to get started, I guess, more or less, which maybe some of that was almost American gangsterish with like, the Denzel Washington
it's
movie.
Funny because they even name drop Frank Lucas.
That's right. They do, don't they?
At one point,
Okay.
Yeah, right after the spoken word poetry session and everything, they walk out and he even talks about we're going to open up the new black bank and blah blah blah, and he said Frank Lucas has money, he'll front me and everything.
That's right.
And I was like, oh, I got that one, I know that guy.
So yeah, I kind of, as I was watching it, I sort of got the impression that like maybe it would have been cooler if the movie had just been that. Like if it hadn't been a Sopranos thing. But then I guess we kind of already got that movie with American Gangster, which is a really good movie, incidentally. So it was also weird because I found myself, and this is, I'll be interested if you do finish the movie, Tom. I'll be interested to get your
I
perspective on
will. I
this,
definitely will.
because I found myself much more entertained by the second half of the movie than the first half. And it's funny because by the time the movie ended, I was actually as invested as I had been the entire time I had been watching it. And so when it ended, I was almost like, oh, you kind of cut the water off, just as I was really sort of getting more invested in the story that's being told here. So that's my overall kind of spoiler free impression. Will, what was yours?
Well, compared to Brazilian butt farts, it's a masterpiece.
Jesus. Okay.
That's I know I know what you're talking about.
Do you?
That's a very because that is going to mean nothing to anybody who's listening to this.
So somebody put me up to saying that to you today. So I was waiting, biding my time.
Yeah. Wow. That was that's a pull from a conversation I was having. And this is going to sound so weird and bad, like without the context.
I'm ready for it.
It's a conversation I was actually having with Will's wife just yesterday.
Wow.
Yeah. So,
okay.
But I promise you, in context, it makes perfect sense. But yeah, okay, yeah, that was good. That was good. I'm gonna have to text her. I'll have to text her about that.
Well, so go ahead, Will. Other than that, other than Brazilian Bart farts,
so compared to them, it's a masterpiece. Right? So there are people out there who watch this movie and losing their damn minds because they love it so much. They're just their minds are blowing up because they can't get enough of it, and because of it, I'm hearing rumors that they're talking about doing now a series with these old characters, with these prequel characters now. So who knows what's going to happen? But
that could work.
I don't know. I'll tell you. I watched The Sopranos when it was out. I watched them. I wasn't a huge fan, but I enjoyed it. But I wasn't invested in it. It wasn't, when Tony died at the end. Spoiler alert, Nick. Sorry.
So you do believe?
I mean, I know that. I know that.
So you believe he dies at the end? Though.
I mean, come on. Yeah, it's so obvious to me.
Okay, right? That's what I tell people. I'm just like, I don't understand.
I think he did too.
A conversation.
I think he did too.
Okay, so I couldn't really, like, we talked a little bit about it before we started, and we talked about characters. I don't remember people's names. I mean, Tony, I remember, right? And I know certain characters. But to your point, Tom, there are all these younger versions of characters that we watched throughout the Sopranos series that I'm sure I'm supposed to have recognized, but I didn't really, because I wasn't that invested in the show. So it was lost on me. The mom looks familiar. I think was she Olympia Dukakis? I don't remember. I mean, but she so
the mom is that very
no.
I know, but was she
like
a younger version of? I mean, I'm just trying to think of who these people were, and some of them I recognized. Okay, I remember he looks familiar, but I couldn't really place him. And I think that to me it was just, I agree with you. It's too displaced. Had it happened a year or 2 or 5 even after The Sopranos ended, I think I would have been much more invested in it. As it was, I tried to watch it. Honestly, I fell asleep 12, 15 times throughout the movie. And every time I woke up, I'm like, what the heck happened? I have to rewind it. So I wasn't that interested in it. I agree with you, Nick, that it was better when it was an older Tony than when he was 8 or 12 or whatever he was at the beginning.
Right. Yeah.
I think, in fact, the only thing I found interesting when he was younger, and we'll talk about in the spoilers, was the Ray Liotta thing, but we'll talk about that later. Other than that, I was like, snooze fast, right? So I don't think this movie was for me. I think this is a love letter to hardcore Soprano fans who are still rewatching old episodes of Sopranos. It just wasn't for me.
So you do not recommend?
If you are a hardcore Sopranos fan, I recommend it.
Right.
If you're not, watch In the Heights.
Same kind of movie. Same thing.
Maybe if you're
same thing but better.
Maybe if you're also like a hardcore mob movie fan, you might enjoy it.
Maybe.
But yeah, I think there are things. So,
But they're better, way better mob movie
oh, sure,
mob movies than this
sure,
one.
For sure.
This is a watered down version of a TV
absolutely.
show that just doesn't, it
But
I
doesn't
my
do
thing
agree.
is,
anything.
if you are a mob movie fan, it's kind of like westerns. You've seen pretty much all of them.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And so it's gonna. Are you gonna watch this one? Eventually, you probably will watch it.
Yeah.
And I think that ultimately, I think the worst thing about it is that it's mediocre. I think that's my takeaway from it. The worst thing about it is that it's mediocre. It's not this nailed out the park thing that a lot of the fans probably would have wanted and
Yeah.
everything there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Will's absolutely right. If you're a Sopranos fan and
Yeah.
you've watched the series 3 times, I bet you will have a better chance of picking out some of these characters than the three of us did.
Yep, absolutely.
All right. Spoiler time.
All right, let's do it.
So piggybacking off what you just said, Tom, the fact like the saddest thing is that it's mediocre. I agree with that because what it is, the source material of The Sopranos is so not mediocre.
Correct.
Like, obviously I understand it maybe wasn't Will's favorite show, but even though I'm not finished with it yet, to me, it's already one of the best shows I think I've ever seen. Just
Mhm.
in terms of, I mean, the show itself, like when you think about this is a show about Tony Soprano, who is a mob boss, and like you would never know. I mean, going into it in the first episode, but your preconceived notions, you would never think that the show is so focused on like mental health and all of this
Mhm.
other stuff that is not just your typical mob, like, hey, this is our territory, bang bang. Like there is
Yep.
some of that in the show, and
There's got to be.
yeah, there has to be. But because it's so rich in other areas that most mob movies and other mob content isn't, it only makes that stuff that is the common mob stuff that much better, I think, and it elevates it to an even higher level because you get insight into who these people are behind the people who are actually committing these crimes and stuff like that. And in this movie, they try to give, I think, more insight into that type of stuff.
Too much.
Mhm.
Yeah, in a weird way, it is almost too much. I mean, it does almost get too much into the minutia, or I guess it's just the minutia that they chose to highlight just isn't that interesting in and of itself.
Mhm.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Could be.
Like,
Could be.
so you've got Dickie Moltisanti, who, okay, cool, fair enough. Even though I'm only 3 seasons into The Sopranos, I get, okay, this is Christopher's dad, and I get all that.
Mhm.
But like, just I think too much time, in my opinion, spent with him and his girlfriend. Like, I mean, I mean, I get it. Like, I understand
You mean
showing
his
that relationship. Well, yeah,
stepmom,
yeah, because
girlfriend?
because
That was
obviously,
weird. Like that was a weird creative. Can I just say that's a weird creative choice to make because we're not dealing with real people here.
right?
All right. So you didn't have to do that.
You didn't have
But you're
to,
like, let's do it. Let's do it.
but I'd
Let's do
argue
it. He
makes it.
bangs his mom, man.
Well,
He
well, it
bangs
doesn't.
his stepmom.
Yeah, he bangs
Sorry,
the
I'm sorry, Will.
girlfriend's.
I'm sorry, Will.
It's all good. You know, everyone is turned on by different things. If that works for you, brother.
Well,
I just thought it was weird. It was kind of like one of those things
Yeah.
that was like, it was unnecessary, and it makes it an odd thing every time I see them as a couple. It's kind of like in the Flash show with Barry Allen and Irish Wrestler being like adopted brother and sister. I'm like, no, it's always going to be weird now.
Yeah.
You've made it. You made
Well-
a creative choice that didn't have to happen.
Right.
That makes it weird.
Well, and on top of that, he is essentially he's the de facto protagonist because he's the guy that you pretty much spend the most amount of time with.
Right.
So that is an extra layer of odd. Like like when you think about that particular relationship. And also he
Mhm.
killed his father. He
Yeah.
he murders
Brutally.
he murders his father in like a blind rage because his father was insulting his actual mom. Like
Yeah.
kills him over that and then starts banging his
His stepmom.
dad's girlfriend. Yeah, stepmom, his dad's girlfriend.
Yeah.
So there's some weirdness there.
It was definitely weird, but honestly, it wasn't until that moment that I got interested.
Yes,
Yeah,
I
yeah, well,
agree.
yeah.
That's where it finally was like, oh, a
Yeah.
thing happened.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
When I
yeah,
I
saw
got to
that,
because
tell you,
when he did
when
that
the
car, right? And now what? I was like, okay, now we're talking. Now
and
we're
that's
cooking.
right,
and that's
right,
what, like a solid half hour into
Yeah.
the movie.
yeah, that
Yeah.
was about a half hour in.
Far enough in where you're like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to make this
Yeah, I
scene.
mean, far enough
Absolutely.
that it's like you should have hooked me before now.
Way
Like,
before now. Absolutely.
regardless of what you do in any movie, I feel like, again, I have no problem with a slow burn. And as an example, like I've said to many people, like There Will Be Blood. I think I love that movie, but I do think without Daniel Day-Lewis, it's a much weaker film. I think a lot of it hinges on his performance. But in that movie, Paul Thomas Anderson hooks me in the first 10 minutes, even though it's essentially silent with what they have Daniel Day-Lewis doing. Point is, I think you got to hook people no matter what you're doing, no matter how no matter how you pace a movie, no matter what you do, you got to have something early on that hooks people.
And that is what Map of Tiny Perfect Things does. It hooks you right at the
Full circle,
beginning.
baby.
Well, there we go.
Full circle.
Yeah. But
Full
no,
circle. Look, I agree with what Nick is saying. Okay, because really, first off, that first part of the movie, the beginning and everything there is just, I think what we're saying here is that they tried to do too much. First
Yeah.
off, Will said they tried to do too much. Nick pointed out all of the minutia and everything that made The Sopranos great. And what it feels like is that they tried to include the same kind of thing in the movie, but you don't have a season's worth of hour-long episodes
Yes.
Right.
to really dig into that like you're going to need to really have people's attention.
Yeah.
Or for a prolonged period of time.
They did
more
something.
specifically.
They
And
did
then I think your
something.
other
And we're not invested in the characters enough. At least the younger
Correct.
versions of them, we're not invested in the
No.
characters enough to really give a shit. To give a
Really?
Well,
No.
what they did was,
No.
I think they were banking on, and this is we can't really get into this now because it would take too long, but I had a conversation with a friend a couple of weeks ago about a totally different movie, but same kind of subject, where we were talking about how we kind of feel like in modern times, there are certain movies that have gotten, especially when you're doing something off the back of a franchise, there are movies that have gotten so good at fan service and giving you nuggets that it
Mhm.
almost feels like now the fan service is being substituted for actually having like a good story. They're just banking on the fan service being the thing that you'll
Like that
like
last
enough.
Star Wars movie.
That's actually the example that we used in our conversation. We were using the
Yeah.
example of Rise of Skywalker, but I don't want to get too far off on that because I could. But I do, and this movie, I
Because
think
we'll
in
talk
some,
forever on it.
yeah, I think this movie does some similar things where they are banking on you being so familiar with The Sopranos that they can just throw all this fan service at you of like, oh, here's this character, here's this guy. And I recognize the majority of them, even though I'm only like 3 seasons in. It's like, oh, there's Paulie. Oh, there's like Big Pussy. Oh, there's these other guys. I get it. But unfortunately, underneath all of it, you don't have a story there that is compelling enough on its own to
Right.
that you really can sink your teeth into. They're trying to do, as we've said with other movies, they're trying to do too much. They've got like 3 different stories they're trying to tell, or at least 3 different things they're trying to accomplish. And they kind of just shove it all together and hope that like the fan service will be the glue that really holds it together. And I mean, maybe for some people it will be, but you know,
which is why I say if you're a Sopranos fan, it's good for you. If you're not, it's not. I mean,
Yeah.
well, because
people-
30 minutes in,
there might be people who
no, go ahead.
there might
go
be
ahead.
people there who aren't Sopranos fans who actually like it, and just for whatever it's worth. But I think probably 9 out of 10 people will say what I'm saying. That if you're a Sopranos fan, you like it. If you're not, you won't.
Yeah.
Or,
Well, I think
or at
even
least
some
they'll be
Sopranos
okay.
fans will be somewhat, if they're being any kind of objective, I think even some Sopranos fans are going to have to admit that it's not great. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well,
Like,
as a Sopranos fan, like I said, it's mediocre. Like
Yeah.
that's it. Like that's the movie. Like it doesn't, because it tries to do so much, it doesn't excel anywhere.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And because of that, it at best, it's just like I said, it's just mediocre. And it's not a bad movie. I've seen way worse. I've seen
Oh, yeah,
worse
yeah.
mobster movies than this.
It's
okay?
not Cry Macho,
But-
guys. It's not that bad.
Oh no!
It is not as bad as Cry
my thing is
Macho.
this, yeah, it's not a bad. This is not a bad movie.
No.
By any stretch of the imagination. It just might be one that doesn't interest you, depending on your taste.
Right.
And because I don't think that this movie is good enough to pick up any new fans is the key.
No.
Because the story that they're telling, they can't spend enough time with these characters because there's too many characters. First off, there's too many different ones there to really spend time with them to really build anything off of them. So, like you said, we're really banking on you knowing them already and working from there. Because the only character that gets real developed time is Dickie.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? It's Dickie. And to a lesser extent, I guess Leslie Odom, his character and everything there. But at the same time, like I said, even that, again, because there were so many different things they're trying to do, even that story with the black mafia rising and everything and doing their thing, black organized crime coming up and becoming its own thing, even that didn't get enough of focus to really make it good. Everything it's fine. At best, everything is serviceable.
Yeah. Well, let me ask this real quick, because I was just gonna say, I one thing I wanted to know is, like, I was gonna ask what was our favorite part of the movie, just to say something a little bit more positive about it. But I also wanted to ask Tom, where did you stop, so that I don't say anything, since you're gonna finish it. What was the last thing that you saw?
So I could tell you exactly the last thing that I see on my screen here.
Did you see? Let me put it this way: did you see the shootout scene? That's not really a spoiler.
Which shootout scene? The one where No, I'm actually an hour. I take that back, Nick. I lied to you earlier. I'm an hour and 1 minute in.
Okay. Well, then you might not have seen what I think is maybe the best scene in the movie, which there's a shootout somewhere in the middle that involves.
I must be coming up on it.
Yeah. So it involves both. It involves both sides. It involves the white mafia and the black mafia. It's a pretty dope scene. It's got some pretty good suspense and tension to it. That scene I thought might have been maybe the best scene in the movie.
Yep, that one. And when he's trying to get rid of that body, those are the two best scenes, I think, for me in that movie. The only two scenes I can think of that are worth even mentioning, honestly.
Hold on, I gotta ask: did you guys know Ray Liotta was a twin before he showed up?
I did not, and I thought it was cheesy as hell. So in fact, when he killed Ray Liotta in the car the first time, I turned to my wife and I said, "Well, shit, he wasn't in that very long." Right. The first time I was like, wow, that was a small role, a half hour, and he's already dead. And then next thing I know, he's in jail, and here's Ray Liotta, a better looking Ray Liotta, but I was like, what? That's so cheap, man. No, I'm not.
Yeah, I agree with you. I thought that was cheap too, because I would say that was kind of the best, moment at the beginning, was when he does go ahead and he kills Ray Liotta and everything there, because I wasn't expecting it, because I had seen all the trailers and had seen him talking to Ray Liotta in the prison and everything. So I already made up in my, even when they started going at it, I already made up in my mind that this is going to work out and we're going to be fine, because later on they have to talk in the prison. I've seen the trailer.
Right.
And then when he's dead, I'm like, okay, well, all right, let's go.
100%.
Let's go.
100%. That's the reaction. That's why I thought it was so good, because at first it actually made me perk up, like, he killed Ray Liotta. What the hell? Right?
What the hell?
But then here comes Brother Ray Liotta.
Yeah, and that was, I agree with you.
But can I say though, I actually like second Ray Liotta, the character, more than first Ray Liotta.
Oh no, I do too.
I agree too on that.
I wanted more
in the first place.
No, I mean I get it, but like I agree with you. Like when it dawned on me that he was playing twins, I mean I didn't think it was stupid. I was just like, oh, that's kind of weird, but I kind of got over it, because
we didn't say stupid, we said cheap.
Okay, fair enough. It was it was cheap, but like I kind of got over it quickly, just because I liked the character he was playing more, and I was much more interested in that performance that he was giving. Because I liked this idea of like this guy who's like, yeah, like I'm already in prison. I've already done stuff. So now my whole role is just to tell you how you're fucking up and why.
Right.
And and just do it in a really calm voice. And I'm going to have you bring me jazz records every time you come here.
That's not jazz.
Like I'm going to have, like every time you come here, I'm just going to be like, yo, I want jazz records. And I'm just going to like tell you that you're just screwing up everything. in your life. And also I'd like to say on the subject of Ray Liotta, I just would love to believe that like way back when Ray Liotta did Goodfellas, he somehow had it written into his contract that if any mob movie ever gets made, he at least gets the chance. He at least gets the chance to turn it down,
right?
Because like Ray Liotta is in a lot of mob movies.
Yeah. And it was interesting because when the first Ray Liotta came on screen, Karen was like, "Is that Ray Liotta? He looks like crap, man. He looks terrible." Like
he did look different in the first at first, right?
Age well, right?
Okay,
and so
all right, it wasn't just me.
No, but then the second Ray Liotta, he now that
he looked like Ray Liotta.
Yeah. So
right.
Yeah.
Right. I don't know. I don't know I don't know if that was on purpose or if it was just. I don't know. Maybe the lighting was just better in the prison scenes.
I mean, they just need to make him look a little different. I don't know.
Yeah, no,
yeah.
Even though he was in prison, he was clearly the better looking brother.
He was.
Well, he was also a Buddhist.
He was the cute twin
because he mentioned something about. So like all that Buddhism he was practicing, he centered himself and he just looked better. He was in a better frame of mind.
That's right.
You know,
he said you got to stop wanting shit. Stop wanting shit, man.
It's the force, man. He was accessing the force, and
that's right.
That's him young. Is like the emperor, man.
So is that what you've done? Is you've taken Buddhism and turned it into the Force, into Jediism?
I mean, why not? Why not?
Why can't it just be Buddhism?
Sure.
That's sure.
All right, guys. What are we watching next week?
So next week we are going to do Halloween Kills. Because it is the month of October. The season of Halloween is upon us. The holiday of Halloween. I call it a holiday, even though it's not really recognized officially as a holiday. To me, it's a holiday. We're gonna do Halloween Kills. I would recommend, because I have seen Halloween 2018. I watched it a couple weeks ago. I would recommend you seek it out if you can. I don't know if it's available for free anywhere. I bought it on Prime. I rented it for $4. Because Halloween.
It's a continuation of
2018? Yes. So Halloween Kills is following. So what Halloween in 2018 did, they completely ignore everything except the first movie.
Yeah.
So they're treating it as a sequel to Halloween 1978. So the premise being, this thing happened 40 years ago. Nothing has happened since, and Michael Myers breaks out and does something.
I know, Will. I know. I'm with you. I hate when they do that too.
I agree.
Like I hate all these trilogy, all of these movies didn't happen. 11 movies didn't happen.
I agree.
It's just this one.
But if I may, as someone who did watch Halloween 2018, let me just say, in my opinion, as far as movies that totally retcon everything and try to reboot go, I think it's the best one. We've had a reboot of Friday the 13th. We've had a reboot of Nightmare on Elm Street, which were both not good. I think Halloween 2018 was way better than those. Way better.
I think the best reboot that like made it so the other ones didn't. I don't know. Actually, it didn't make it so the other ones didn't exist. But I actually really like, and I know Will's gonna hate this, but I actually really liked what J.J. Abrams' Star Trek did with the whole combining the two different franchises and everything there, where he said, Leonard Nimoy was still there and all of this stuff actually still happened. There's just like time and all this change. It's fine. That works. But as far as like just going and saying, hey, these didn't happen. You know what I'm saying? We just start off right here because, those movies suck. So we're not going to do that. We're just going to start off right here because we got Jamie Lee Curtis again.
Well, I was speaking more in terms of horror films. I'm not saying it's the best movie that's ever.
I see.
In terms of all the horror franchise, so you've got your big horror franchises like Halloween, Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Like you've got these big franchises. Of those, and they have all rebooted at various times, I do think Halloween 2018 is easily the best of all of those.
I'll give you that. I'll give you that. Halloween 2018 was okay.
Okay, so
it was okay.
So shouldn't we talk about this next week?
Yeah, we'll talk about the. Yeah, we'll talk.
I just want to make a point here. You guys are forcing me to watch two movies that I hate, not just one. All right.
When was the first? What was the other one?
I gotta watch 2018. Otherwise, I'm not gonna understand.
Oh yeah. I mean, well, you could watch.
You watch two slasher movies. Probably the the genre of film that I dislike the most. You're making me watch 2 of them to
Well,
prepare for
we'll
next
watch
week.
some musicals. You'll get Your Greatest Showman in, and you'll get In the Heights, and I'm sure we'll watch more down the road.
Yeah,
But
we'll
right now it's
Can
October,
they
and I
have
think
like a version of In the Heights where the music's removed?
In fact, let's call it now. Since I have to watch 2 movies next week, you guys better go watch 2 movies too. In the Heights, baby.
okay.
In the Heights.
all right.
Challenge.
I'll
Let's
watch.
just-
Gauntlet
I'll
is
watch this
thrown.
In the Heights.
Let's just make sure we
In
have
the
enough
Heights.
time to talk about
In
all
the
of it.
Heights.
Well, let's
watch
watch them and get it prepared so that we have it ready to go
Okay,
as a
yeah.
movie challenge in case
Look,
we have enough time.
I
I'll watch
better
In the Heights.
cry. I better
Watch In the
cry
Heights.
and get in touch with my inner Puerto Rican. I don't have an inner Puerto Rican, by the way. but
Yeah,
but, you know.
my ancestry is mostly German, so
yeah, that's
you
not
know,
in my not in my mix. I
there's
don't
not
have.
there's not a whole lot.
I'm looking forward to hearing what you guys think about it because I'm pretty sure you guys are going to hate it, but it's going to be awesome. It's going to be fun. So.
You know what, Will? I probably will hate it. But
you know
for
what, though?
you, I'm going to give an honest attempt to enjoy it.
But and here's the thing: regardless of how I feel about any genre or whatever, I will watch it, and I will watch
Yeah.
the whole thing.
Excellent.
I can't promise that last part.
Look
You know, I've got a track record. I would say I'll watch the whole thing. I plan on watching the whole thing, but you know how it turns out. So I don't even want to say that now and then show up, and be like, well, I got like 15 minutes left because you guys will you'll
If
kill me.
you come to another podcast and you have not watched the full movie,
you got 2 strikes, Tom.
You know what I'm gonna do? Next time that it happens, I'm just gonna lie and I'm gonna see how long it takes you guys to realize Tom hasn't seen this movie. I'm gonna see how far we get into. It'll be like it reminds me of my AP English classes, like when we read The Heart of Darkness, and I never made it past the first page, but I just sat there and listened to them talk about it enough that I was able to BS my essay and get the highest grade in the class. We'll try that whole thing.
That might be a cool gimmick for the show is to make it one of us doesn't watch the movie and the audience has to guess which one didn't.
See who didn't watch it.
Yeah, that could be that could be a fun segment, a fun little game.
To Tom's point, they'll probably just keep calling
It
on
was Tom.
It's Tom.
Yeah.
It was Tom.
Yeah.
It was Tom. It was Tom each time, and you guys will be like, "Tom, you don't watch the movie this week, so that way we don't have to depend on you to watch the movie."
Right.
And it'll be good.
After a while, it'll just be Nick watching all the movies.
I know, right?
Yeah, it's just
I'll be
Nick.
the only one. It'll just be me, like, all right, okay, so here's what happened in the second act, and
Right,
here's
right.
the.
Well,
But
I'm with
anyway,
you.
so
I'm with you.
Many Saints of Newark, I think we all agreed, it was okay, but hopefully, as Tom pointed this out to me, a friend of ours who religiously listens to the show, and thank you, asked, when are we going to review a movie that we actually love? And my response to that is just, well, when we find one that we really love. Like, there are
We're
genuine
trying.
reactions. Yeah,
Not
there are
next
genuine
week?
reactions.
Not next week, but the week after.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That's when it's going to be.
That's
Guaranteed
it.
flipping
okay.
to you.
But-
you think you think that's the one?
I'm 100% sure that is the one.
Okay.
So 2 weeks from now, we are going to do Dune, and Will is a huge sci-fi guy. I hope I
Not-
like it. I've never seen the
Not
original
just
Dune,
sci-fi
but
guy, but actual Dune itself. That book is.
Right.
Oh, you're a Dune head.
Oh my God,
You're
is
actually one of the Dune fans. I've never met one. It's
I-
nice to meet you.
nice to meet you too, my friend. This is one of the best science fiction books ever written, and it's never been translated to film the right way. And I have 100% confidence in this director because
Well,
what he did
okay.
with Blade Runner was outstanding.
it's
So I'm looking forward to
it's Denis Villeneuve, right?
Yep,
Yep.
Denis Villeneuve, and he is a diehard fan of Dune. Everyone else who tried to make Dune didn't really get it, so I'm really looking forward to seeing Denny's.
I am going to go
movie.
back and watch Lynch's because I'm just interested and I've never seen it. But
Spice is life.
I will
Okay.
never watch that.
okay, well,
I'll never watch.
I guess
that.
I'm the overachiever who not only does his homework
You're
but
the-
does extra
You're-
credit.
Yeah,
so.
he's like, I'm gonna go do the extra credit. That's fine. I'm over here trying to figure out how I'm gonna get my grade up without doing this homework.
Yeah, really.
If you want more extra credit, Nick, you go ahead and watch Map of Tiny Little Perfect Things or whatever. That's
Well, I mean,
I'm
the way-
surprised you didn't challenge us with that. I'm surprised
I
that
thought
would have
of
been
it.
the challenge.
I thought of it. I thought
well,
about
I'm
that.
sure it will be. I'm sure it will be.
Because that one, I was like, see, now I'm like, I was gonna go watch that movie this week, and then now I'm like, I'm just gonna wait until Will makes me, because I was also going to be like, I might, just run by the wife, hey, you want to watch In the Heights? so that way, if I didn't like it, I could just fall asleep on it, and then no one's going to give me, any crap next week.
Well, I
But
think
now I have to watch it.
yeah, I think your wife will like Map of Tiny Perfect Things. I do think so.
Okay. Cool.
All right, guys.
Well, yep. So Many
It was
Saints of
fun.
Newark. We can't fully recommend it. It was okay, but if you're a diehard Sopranos fan, you'll probably find something to like about it. Next week is Halloween Kills for the month of October. We have an email. Let's get real, REEL moviepod@gmail.com. Please send us suggestions if you have movies you would like us to watch. And yeah. Good show, guys.
Good show.
I'll see you guys next week. And please tune in next week for Let's Get Real.